Hey, buddy lawyers, welcome to the podcast. Today we have with us Mr. Rohit Jain. Hi, Rohit.
Hi, Prasanna.
Yeah. So, Rohit is an associate member of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India, a legal counsel, and a journalist working at the Bloomberg Quint. You may have seen many journalists having a legal background. So, how is this career option for lawyers? Let's dig more into this with our guest, Mr. Rohit Jain, in this episode. So, Rohit, first tell us why did you choose journalism? I mean, you were working for Deloitte as a company secretary there. So, what made you switch to journalism?
So I'll just start introducing myself because that will help you understand why I switched into journalism. So if you go through my LinkedIn profile also, and people tell this to me a lot that I have done like all kind of education. So my educational background is quite varied, and so the same thing happens with my work also. So I started out my career with Deloitte Consulting India Private Limited, which is basically a large company in Hyderabad. I joined there as a CS trainee, and then I completed my entire CS training over there. I got my membership, and I was working as a in their legal the Office of General Counsel, that is the legal team. So I had worked over there over like 4.5 years, and that was like a broad or a very long stint by today's terms. So after working over there, I thought it's time to diversify. So I should go into something which I'm good at. So one thing I knew for sure that I'm good in legal writing, and I'm also good in understanding things. So that's how I thought that I should shift into legal journalism. And what happened during that time is, if you see between 2010 to 2015, a lot of I won't say they started out, but a lot of web portals like Bar and Bench and Live Law became more popular, became more mainstream because see, as India developed into a India started developing, a lot of people started becoming aware about Supreme Court. They wanted to know more about that. So although Bar and Bench and Live Law, both of these portals started a bit before that, but they became more mainstream in this time. So that's how I also got attracted to legal writing or kind of a thing. So what I was doing during my education was that I was writing a lot on CA Club India, which is a good web portal for chartered accountants and upcoming company secretaries. So there I saw that a lot of my articles were getting good attention, good comments. And when we say good comments, they were also bad comments also.
Yeah,
So
that's
both things,
there always.
but they were getting hit. So I at least knew that I understand what's the pulse of the market and what people like reading and what people don't like reading. So that's how I got a basic understanding that okay, chalo, I'm good at writing. So I was waiting for the right opportunity, and then this opening at Bloomberg Quint came up. So I just thought if it works for me, then it will be a good opportunity. So that's how I came into legal journalism. There was no pre-planned thing as such, because see, at the start of your career, if you there are two kind of people. One are like who are very good at planning their career and they just move as per a proper plan, and then there are other kind of people who just move on to the next opportunity. So for me, the start was very good, well planned. I started out with a very good company, but after that I just wanted to diversify. I wanted to try new things. So that's how I dabbled into legal journalism. So I tried, I was working, I quite successfully worked in my stint at Deloitte after 4 to 5 years. Then I thought that it's time to diversify. So that's how I entered into the world of journalism.
So, according to you, you are a mix of two types of people you told, right?
Yeah, no more than that, in fact. You can, a lot of, I have faced these questions. Like, I have been at the firing range in many interviews, and depending on who is interviewing me, like people just go through my CV and they say, what were you doing at the start of your career? So I just tell them, sir, it's up to you. You decide, like you try to guess what I have done with my career, and then you take a call. So that's how it is. Like I don't argue basically on that.
No, and one must not. Even my profile is somewhat like that. I started as a lawyer, then I went to YouTube. Now I am into multimedia. So things happen.
Yeah, but you are
Anyway,
uh, but we are all successful in whatever fields we are working. So that's how someone should see that, rather than digging through the past. Like what what one was doing 10 years back. Because see, even in today's parlance, anything on your CV which is more than 5 years old is basically irrelevant. That's how the world is changing very fast.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's
And
how people should see.
it depends why you are doing it. If you have a clear answer to that, you can go anywhere, whatever you want to do. Like that, why is very
Yeah, and
important.
in fact, even if my answer is not unclear, one should see, like let's say, I have done a XYZ degree, which was like totally unrelated to what I was doing before that. But the end result of that is that I have got some knowledge. I have got a degree.
Exactly,
So like,
exactly. That will not go waste anywhere wherever
so
you
that,
go.
yeah, exactly.
So, okay, so not digging more into that, let's move on to our next question. What is legal journalism, and how is it much difference between legal journalism and journalism?
So I'll say, let's say legal journalism is like any other kind of journalism. So if you see the history of journalism, first there was only print media, and then came this entire digital wave, websites, internet, and everything. So in the last 8 to 10 years, what has happened is that there are new avenues opening up in journalism also. So a lot of new things came up. So I'll not say this is something new, but legal journalism also became a bit popular in recently, like in last 10 to 15 years, because see, especially in corporate, what you call corporate law, or legal journalism mainly pertains to both the which relates to common man, that is civil law, criminal law, as well as corporate law. So I can speak more on the corporate side, because I cover more of corporate, more of the changes in the corporate world. So I won't say it's anything different. It's only that you deal with companies and things that impact the corporate sector, as well as taxation and other things. So these are more not to do more with the day-to-day issues that a common man faces, but that has more to do with uh, on the corporate side. But that said, there are a lot of things, like a lot of things take place at the Supreme Court level that affect each and every common man, as well as in the High Court. So I'll say legal journalism is a mix of both, depending on what you are presently emphasizing on. It can be both on issues that pertain to common man, as well as issues which pertain to the corporate side. So legal journalism is just like any other side of journalism, but it has to do. Someone should have a legal understanding to basically step into the world of legal journalism. That's how. Other than that, there is no difference between like say covering a beat. So that's the technical word that people use in journalism. So if there is any topic or any sector that you cover, that's called as a beat. So for example, if you are covering an infrastructure sector, you should know in and outs of the infrastructure sector.
Hmm.
Similarly, in the legal sector, you should know everything. So if you are told that you are going to track all the cases at NCLT, it's not that if you are covering a banking company, or if you are covering an infrastructure company, if you are covering the legal bit, you should know the entire spectrum of laws that you are given to deal with. So that's how legal journalism is. It's entirely similar to any other form of journalism, but it has its own certain peculiarities.
Yeah, and by knowing in and out, I think you are saying that you must know the complete hierarchy, how things work practically there, and like that.
Yes, yes. So let's say someone from a legal background comes into it, then that comes in handy for him. So,
Hmm.
like for example, if I was a practicing lawyer working for 2 to 3 years, and then I join uh, a company where as a legal journalist, then it's quite easy for me. The challenge lies for a person who is not from a legal background. For him, he takes some time to learn the intricacies of how things work in a court, what an interim order means, what an interim injunction means. But I think if a person is like fairly dedicated to his work and is like has a good grasping power, it's not a challenge for anyone to step into the world of legal journalism. The only thing is that one should be very very careful about what he does, because unlike other matters, one cannot be inaccurate or wrong when it comes to legal reporting. It has to be very accurate, otherwise it has a lot of side effects also. So one has to be very accurate. That's the most important thing in legal journalism.
So you were also, before the pandemic, you were also reporting judgments and all from Supreme Court and High
Yeah,
Court.
so basically, I am based out of Mumbai. So I was primarily tasked with reporting on the corporate or big high profile matters in the High Court, NCLT, Securities Appellate Tribunal, and the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal. So these were the forums that I was covering.
So you used to visit those courts
Yes,
also,
yes,
right?
yes. So I was just coming to that. The best part of legal reporting is that you get to visit the courts, and during some time in the NCLT, especially, there were some
On a daily basis.
on a daily basis,
Yeah.
especially last year, because the insolvency and bankruptcy code, a lot of new 2018 and 19, I stepped into the world of journalism in May 2019. So post 2000 May 2019, I can like talk very accurately about that. A lot of new cases came up relating to insolvency, company law, as well as corporate disputes. So especially in some months during like say June, July, August, and September, the courtrooms were like totally packed in NCLT. So like it was that crazy sometimes, and there you had to be in a packed room, taking down notes and standing for long hours, because arguments sometimes can go on the entire day, depending upon the what
Hmm.
kind of case is there. So I was
And also depending upon the judge.
yes, yes, yes. So a lot of time, in fact, I'll say 60% of a journalist's time who works on who reports on courts, prior to the pandemic, prior to this entire video conferencing thing came up, it was entirely spent in courts. And sometimes there are like say there is a lunch break, or maybe some other important case comes up, or there is mentioning of matters sometimes in the High Court, so that somewhat delays the closure of the day. So one has to be very patient when it comes to court reporting. You have to stand there a lot and take down notes, because at the end of the day you have to file a story. And if a case is in the argument phase, then you have to pick up the good lines that make a good story, because no one likes to read a boring story. So you have to, and the main principle is the principle of accuracy. So you cannot be vague or add spice to what has been said in the court, because you might have heard how the Supreme Court has sometimes said that whatever is being said in the court is not what is being reported. So one has to be like very accurate in what is being reported in the court, and not to add any word of your own. So I used to take one has to, and because mobiles are not allowed inside the court, one has to write them on diaries or sheets of paper. So one has to be very careful about listening properly. One should have good listening skills, and one should have good writing skills also, and fast writing. Oh.
Yeah, and the good listening skills is very important, because in those courts, most of the courts don't have the mics, and where the mics are available in High Courts and Supreme Court, many judges don't even use those mics.
Yeah.
So it
So
one can barely hear that what
yeah.
the judge is saying.
Yeah, sometimes no, there is a reason behind that, because sometimes they may want to discuss something confidential, but of course they can. So each court or each of the judges has their own style. So maybe.
But that's quite, because interns or people who are not near to the bench of the judge,
Hmm.
the in the courtroom, they are standing somewhere behind, near they are barely able to hear anything and what's going on. Many people are even quite sleepy while the arguments are going on. I think that is one reason.
So one of the most important factor, at least in the high courts, is that some of the division benches have a press section. So it's basically a
Hmm.
dedicated kind of a partition which is near to the judge, so that you can hear what is being said. But despite that, the other issue is like if you go to Bombay High Court, the building is like huge, and the courtrooms
Hmm.
are like the height of a courtroom is like around 40 to 50 feet. So there is like a good chance that the sound spreads, and you may not be
Right.
able to hear it. So that's how it works. But if you are attentive enough, and if you know broadly what is being argued, understanding what is being argued is the most important thing, and one can only understand it if he pays proper attention right from day one. So it's not a lazy person's work to do court reporting. At least I believe in that principle, because when I used to go to courts, even if I knew that this argument won't go into my story, I used to take a note of it, because someone makes a counter argument against that which can be of reference to me. So I should at least know what is being said in what context. So that's how you have to be like very attentive during the court arguments.
What did you do if you missed a point or statement made by a counsel?
That's very challenging. If it was a material thing, then I used to always cross check with both the parties. But if it wasn't material to the case, then I would just skip reporting on that, because it's better to skip something rather than report it incorrectly. So I would skip, or otherwise
Yeah.
it's get cross check it with other journalists, as well as check it with both sides. So that's the easiest thing. Sometimes you get a response from the arguing counsels. Most of the times, in fact, all of them are very friendly, very helpful. That's the beauty of this profession. But apart from that, but one has to make contacts. That takes time. So one learns a lot on the field. And the best thing about the court reporting is that if you like doing field work, nothing is better than going to a court every day. Because see, there are two so when you visit a courtroom, so if one matter is listed at, say, 10:30 a.m. and the other matter is listed at 2 p.m. In between that, so one must not waste time when you go to the court. You have to talk to a lot of people, talk to the people in registry, talk to the lawyers, talk to the people over there, understand what kind of things are going on. Because sometimes, see, when the for journalists, it is important to talk with people. When you talk with people, you understand what are the things going on, because everything won't come on your home screen. Like, there are certain things that you have to talk with people, and you only, the more you talk, the more you understand, and the wide variety of stories you get is when you open up yourself. So talking is very important in journalism. You have to talk to people.
Right, right. Okay, so we know that as legal reporters, you had to visit courts every day and take down notes from the whatever matters are going on and report it. But apart from that, what was the daily schedule? What things you used to do daily? How your office work used to be planned and all? How was that?
So see, first of all, if you are in Mumbai, one has to start early, because you know how the local transport is in Mumbai. If
Right,
you
right.
if you get late, you will have to go through the crowd. And say if a matter is listed at 10:30 a.m., or if it is listed high on the board, say at serial number 4 or 5, you don't know basically what matter will be adjourned, what will be kept back, and what matter will come at what time. So the only way to ensure all of this is that to be there in time. And so if a court, say a case is listed at serial number 3 in the morning, so you have to reach there at 10:30. So I used to take a local from Ghatkopar at that time in Mumbai. So you can understand, if you want to go from Ghatkopar, you have to get down at Dadar, then change your line, and then again goes to CST, and then walk to the High Court. So one has to start very early in the morning. And sometimes what happens is, see, you are not as a proactive journalist, if even if you have been given a beat, say you will be in charge of tracking all the activities in the courts that are located in the city of Mumbai, but one should not limit oneself to only that particular territory. So what I used to do is, I also, even today I do that. So I also follow a lot of cases at the Supreme Court and the Delhi High Court, because these are the courts that where a lot of commercial matters take up, like especially arbitration matters. If you want to track, there is no other court than the Delhi High Court that one should track on a daily basis. So Delhi High Court, Karnataka High Court, Telangana High Court, Supreme Court, and the Bombay High Court. These 5 courts stay on my radar quite a lot. So sometimes if you get up early in the morning, you have to also check the daily orders that these courts have given, because most of the time, see, for example, IT companies, they are based out of Bangalore and Hyderabad. A lot of them have head offices in Bangalore and Hyderabad. So if it's a large listed company that is involved in some kind of litigation, It may be that you will have to also track those cases, and if you have to report on that, you have to check the daily orders, or if there is any case that you are missing out on. So early in the morning when I wake up, in fact every day, even today, I check all the daily orders on these courts. And sometimes you have to also check regulators like, say, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India, SEBI, because I also report on regulatory development. So if there is any change in the listing regulations, material change in the listing regulations, I will also have to do an explainer on that. So in fact, I at least 3 to 4 times in the day, I check the MCA website, IBBI website, SEBI website, NFRA website, because a lot of action is also taking place on the auditors front. So you have to basically check the entire spectrum of things. Sometimes I also check CIC website, Central Information Commission, so CIC, and even ITAT. So a lot of litigation, anything that pertains to corporate India, you never know. The more websites you visit, like the same thing, like the more you talk, the more information you get. Similarly, the more websites you visit, the more things that you will get. So last time there were a lot of changes with respect to the consumer law in August and September last year. So for that front, I was visiting the Ministry of Consumer Affairs a lot, the website. So that's how it is. So at the start of the day, you have to check the daily orders and check what's the cause list. Sometimes cause lists are not even updated in some of the forums. Sometimes this is not like a daily thing, but sometimes the cause list may not be even updated. And based on what the cause list is, you have to decide. Because see, if you are the alone reporter for a particular city, there have been instances where a matter came up at the same time in NCLT as well as the Bombay High Court, or sometimes even at three different forums. So at that time, you don't have any other option but to skip one of them. So you have to take your own judgment on the basis of what particular stage of case is in. Like if there are just arguments going on, then maybe say you can skip a case and go to the other one which is more relevant. So it all depends, and sometimes you can like ask people over there if I missed out on anything. So that's how your day begins. And so apart from court reporting, I also do a lot of feature stories. Feature stories is anything other than news stories. Like say if there is an amendment if there is any new GST circular, or if the Competition Commission of India has passed any order, or say the last story that I worked on was relating to GST audits. The GST department is issuing a lot of notices under Section 65 of the CGST Act for initiating departmental audit. So how do you come to know about all these things? You have to speak with tax professionals. So that's how it works. You have to assimilate information. You have to pick out the most relevant aspect out of that, and you have to take a judgment call. You have to discuss it with your editor and try to tell them that this is relevant from XYZ perspective, and then frame it into a story in a simple manner that people understand. So that's how it works.
So how are you working now during the pandemic? I mean, there are courts, some courts are open, but some courts are not yet completely open and working fully. So how are you working nowadays?
So if I can be like, to be honest, last 4 or 5 months have been a bit slow in terms of news flow out of courts. But at the start of the pandemic, I'll say I can tell you the exact time frame from April to July. The news flow was quite good because there were a lot of cases with respect to force majeure and other provisions under the Indian Contract Act, etc., etc. So a lot of judgments were coming up. Post July, the news flow out of courts has somewhat slowed down. So that's where you try to balance it out by doing more kind of non-news stories. That is the feature stories. So you have to talk with people, or you have to just think, apply your own thinking. Like let's say there was the government, they revised the MSME threshold, that is the micro, small and medium industries. The government, after a long time, like 10 to 15, after a span of 10 to 15 years, they increased the span of what particular enterprise can be classified as a micro, small or medium industry. So if one is well read enough, because I am from the legal side, I knew that there is a provision in the MSME Act that says that if a company defaults in making payments to MSME vendors beyond a particular period, then the company which defaults on its payments will have to pay penal interest. at a certain rate, which is like very high. So the natural story that comes out of this is that if the revision in definition of the MSME thresholds will benefit small businesses. So that's how I did a story, and that was like very quick story. So that's how you try to relate things. Like if there is an amendment, how does it impact corporate India? How does it impact common person? How does it impact ease of doing business in India? There are a lot of sides that you can like curl out, you can pull out of a legal uh, happening that comes up. So
So you were saying that after July, the news flow reduced. Any specific reason for that?
So a lot of news flow you can see in the NCLT went down because this there was a suspension of IBC for a period of 6 months, and a lot of cases that we were reporting on last year, like a lot of large insolvency matters, they reached somewhat final stage. So like I won't mention any name, but most of the most important matters that were there under the IBC, they were at the final stage of resolution. So when they near the final stage of resolution, it's just an approval process in the courts. So the news flows, I won't say it slowed down, but it changed. Like earlier we used to report like most out of like mostly in 2019, a lot of reporting was being done with respect to SAT, the Securities Appellate Tribunal, and NCLT. Then this year the ball shifted back to the High Court because a lot of commercial matters went back to the High Court. Earlier it was in NCLT because the entire so corporate litigation, it comes out of only Companies Act or the SEBI related rules and regulations. So it is either SAT or NCLT that we were reporting last year. But once this lot of commercial disputes started taking place due to this pandemic, then the ball shifted back to the High Court, and then after that it normalized. So there is like up and down in the legal flow. So like some people are saying that maybe next year, at the start of the next year, one can like court reporters will be again very much busy. So that's what I'm listening from people or from lawyers, because I talk to lawyers a lot. So they are saying that okay, if there has been a lull in past few days, let's wait for next quarter. You will get a lot of commercial litigation at that time. So
Yeah.
and it's not
So,
just, and it's also see, sometimes what happens is so reporting what a reader wants to read. A reader will want to read, like for example, if you are an investor in say in XYZ company, and if there is a court related news relating to that XYZ company, then you will read it. So sometimes if there is no news pertaining to that company, then maybe you won't report on that bit. So at that time you have to pitch in the other aspect, that is the non-news stories. Like think about stories which are like there are different words for that, but you can call it as a feature story or a long term story. So like right now the trending topic are labor laws. Like everyone is affected. If you are working in a
yeah.
company, you will also be affected. I will also be affected. The common man on the street will be affected. And it's like for the first time in last 60 years that these new labor laws have come up. So you can the more you read labor laws, the more you talk to people, you will understand, okay, this has changed, so let's make a story. And it's a long process. You have to research a lot, you have to read a lot, but it's fun.
Okay, so what skills do you think are good to have to become a good legal journalist?
So I'll say the core skill that one should have, it all depends on what side of journalism you are going into. Like there basically in terms of journalism, there are two broad heads that you can classify journalism into. One is print journalism and the second is video or news journalism. I can only talk about the print side of it or the digital side of it or the what you call written medium of it, because I'm more into that. So for a person who wants to get into print journalism or digital journalism, the most important thing is writing skills. Because if you are joining as a journalist, no one is expected to teach you, and no one would teach you how to write. That you can do it during your internship, but there are certain inherent skills that one should have. Otherwise So the most important skill that one should have is writing. And when I say writing, it like sometimes if you are fresh out of your law school, or like say if you are a CS graduate, CS member or professional, so what happens with them is that they are good at writing what we can broadly say as academic writing. They are good at academic writing, they are good in writing papers, legal research papers, and that's a very important skill one should have. But when it comes to legal writing and legal journalism, the principal thing is that you should write, and you should be able to write things that a common man understands. So the purpose of legal journalism is that you have to simplify things that are very complicated in nature. Otherwise, say, like if there is a 20-page judgment, everyone can read that. But why won't people read that? Because they don't understand it, or they don't have the time to do that. So the thing is that you have to explain it to them, and that can be only achieved if you are good in writing. So writing is the most important and the primary skill that one should have first. Second is and equally important is, because this is legal journalism, you should have understanding of reading judgments. You should have understanding of interpreting laws, because see there are and again in legal journalism there are just court reporters who report on day in day out on courts, and there are reporters like me who write on both court matters as well as non-court matters. So for people who have a wider gamut of or a wider area that you have to cover, you also need to understand laws, and for that you have to read. So one must read a judgment, one should have the understanding of reading a judgment and interpreting it, so that and it's not rocket science or something. If one is good and one is sincere, then I think it will be very easy for him. But so two most important skills are understanding the law, and second is writing skills. And when I come to say writing skills, see there are certain standards that different media organizations follow. Each one has their own style. Like no two persons can write even a small instance or a small incident in a very similar manner. Everyone has his own style of writing, everyone has his own things that he will concentrate on. So, and everyone is good at that, everyone has his own point of view towards a particular thing. The main important thing in legal writing is, what I'll say is that you should be able to have an understanding how to provide a proper flow to your story. Like your story should start, it should come to a height, and then it should conclude. So there should be a proper flow to the story, and this all you achieve over a period of time. It's not like you join and in the first month itself your story will be good. Sometimes even when I write something, when I write an article and when it gets published, and the second day when I read it, can I can think of it in a better way. So there is no perfect story as such. You can always better yourself. So I'll say broadly two important skills that a person aspiring to be a legal journalist should have is that legal writing and understanding. And for that, reading is very important. One cannot be lazy. The more you read, the more easy it becomes for you. And when I'm saying reading, it's not just court related material. You can read articles on what other journalists write, because if you read columns in newspapers, and if you read long long form articles, there you can see, because what people generally tell in journalism is that attention span of people is not more than 1 minute when you read on a mobile device. So if you want to retain a reader's attention, you should be able to write in such a fluid manner that the person is tempted to scroll down more than 2 or 3 times so that he reads your entire story. And just to make that story, you can spend like like a long time in just writing a 5 minute story. So that's how it goes. So you have to write, read, and then combine it into the best form. So that's the only thing. And a lot of people may also pose a question like, do you need a mass communication degree to be in legal journalism? I'll say that will be a good thing, but if you don't have it, it does not mean that you cannot come into journalism. Because there are a lot of people I know who are from pure legal background or who don't have a mass comm degree. Even I don't have a mass communication degree, but I think I am doing well for myself. So that you can conclude very easily.
Yeah, right. And also one more skill which you said earlier is the listening skills. I think that we must add here in the list of
Yes,
skills.
yes. Yeah, and listening skill is both in the courts as well as when you talk to people for getting their views. So at that time also you should not misquote a person. So generally
Hmm.
in journalism you prefer written quotes, but sometimes experts or say senior counsels, they are all busy. So you have to talk with them and then paraphrase what they say. So there also your listening skills are like very important.
Right, right. So, I was just imagining whatever you were saying. So, have you faced like some challenges while reporting such thing, taking some bites? What were the challenges? Can you give some examples?
So I remember my first day of journalism was I was reporting a case in the Securities Appellate Tribunal, and that case was in like midway. It. So the best thing is if you track any case right from day one, then you know which side is representing whom and who is saying what. That you can do very easily. But my first day of work as a journalist or as a reporter, I went to the Securities Appellate Tribunal for reporting on a case, and for the first 10 to 15 minutes, I was just trying to understand who is representing whom. So that kind of fun happens. But
Yeah.
apart
That
from that,
actually
it becomes
happens with
easy. And
many people who start like the new lawyers or interns. This they face a lot.
and there is also another aspect to that is sometimes there are a lot of respondents in a particular case, so you can
Right.
see a lot many number of people standing. So that's why I said, like, if you are tracking a court case right from day one, there is nothing anything better than that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's been said a lot that journalism doesn't pay you much. So how much can one expect to get paid in this field? Can you just give a general idea?
I won't go into quoting any figure because see, right now the
No,
stage
no,
of
figure is
uh,
not necessary, but yeah, is
Huh.
it that
So,
true that the statement is it that
so
true?
I'll explain you how things work. See, media as a sector is just like any other sector. There are some companies who have a very large operation base. There are startups. There are established names, and there are names which are like on a decline, just like any other industry.
Hmm.
So you cannot make a very broad statement that media sector is like, you cannot compare. First of all, you cannot compare media with other fields because there are a lot of industry specific limitations also that media faces, and this is not only in India. If you see worldwide, media sector was not in a good shape for a long duration. So that may also be one of the reasons why people have this sort of understanding that media sector does not pay well. But I will disagree with that because I know a lot of people who are earning good being in the media profession. So I would say that media sector is like any other sector. It's not that media pays less or media pays more than any other sector. At the start, there are companies who are operating in a certain what you call sphere. Like some companies are established names, some are trying to start up, or some are doing very niche things. So they take some time to become or to establish a brand of their own. So your pay scale will depend upon the situation, the kind of company you join, the level of the position that you report to, whether you join as an editor, whether you join as a camera person. So it all depends, and you cannot compare media with any other field. But I can say that for sure that after a span of time, when you spend time in media, you become an experienced professional, the salary gap between any other sector and media won't be that much. That's for sure. Because see, if media has less people coming into it, then it also means that there is less supply, and beyond a point of time you cannot replace experience with number of people. So there, in any organization, you need to have experienced people, you need to have freshers, and you need to have middle level management. So that's how things work, not only in the media sector but in any other sector. So like, I'll just say that media, at the start maybe you will get paid less, but after a point of time your salary gap with your colleagues or with your peers won't be that much,
Hmm. Hmm.
provided that you work hard. Otherwise,
Of course. Yeah, that comes without saying. Okay, so how will you guide young lawyers or law students who are planning to get into legal journalism? Like, any tips you want to give to them?
This question I get a lot of LinkedIn, a lot on LinkedIn also, because LinkedIn is a good platform. So
Hmm.
what I would say is, if someone wants to get into legal journalism, the first thing is that it depends on when you think of going into legal journalism. Like, do you think it right from your first year, if you are in a 5-year law course, or like, say, or maybe at the end of your course? It all depends, because see, if you think of entering into the world of legal journalism by your 4th or 5th year, you are better equipped to think about that, because at that point of time you get some sort of understanding as well as maturity that is required to enter into the world of any profession, not just law. So 4th and 5th year, I think, are more crucial. By that time you understand, like, whether where you want to go and what you want to do. If someone wants to enter the world of legal journalism, one must, the same thing that I said before, is that you should have a genuine interest in the legal reporting field or the law field as such. So it can be in the form of like having an interest in legal developments, or in what the courts say, or what the government does. So one must have a genuine interest into the world of legal journalism. Otherwise, if you enter it without any particular interest, or without any particular love for it, then it becomes just that you go to the courts and report. You lose interest in that. So the first and most important thing that one should have is a genuine interest in what one is doing. And the second thing is that if you want to enter into the world of legal journalism, one should start reading and writing a lot, and uh, get it checked by, say, your peers or your teachers, so that it starts, you get a sort of understanding, like, whether people are liking your writing skills or not. And it does not matter if someone likes it or not, because ultimately in the long run you will get better each day. But if people genuinely want to get into legal journalism, they should first check whether they like these kind of things, and whether they are ready to not work in a law firm, and or not practice individually. So because they will have to forego one of those opportunities, and they will also have to check whether they want to remain in the media field in the long run, because sometimes people come to the media field, and then they may or may not like it. So one should have a long term vision of anything.
Yeah, and by writing, I think starting participating in research paper competitions, like writing research papers and all, that will help them a lot, right?
Yes, research paper, or in fact, these days the best platforms are undoubtedly blogs. In fact,
Hmm.
I cannot give a feedback to anyone, like, but whatever, I follow younger people more on LinkedIn, because uh, one of my earlier bosses told me, and that principle I follow a lot. At least he followed this principle. So what he said me is that when you become a senior, and when you hire a person who is more smarter than you. That's how you come to know how the, like, whom you are competing with, the next generation, and how
Hmm.
where you are lagging, if you can better yourself, because learning is a continuous process. So in fact, on LinkedIn also I read a lot of student journal submissions and everything. But I'll say journal writing is a good thing, no doubt. If you get published in a good research journal, then there is nothing like that, like, say, Oxford or something, like a good reputed journal, that adds to your CV a lot. But for legal journalism, equally important is that you write a blog of your own. You write your own comments on a particular case within the ambit that is allowed, or within the limits. Like, you cannot be like very sharp in your criticism, because you know how things are.
Hmm.
So you can do a mild analysis of any particular judgment, or any particular theme that is happening in the legal world. So that's how you, because see, after a point of time, journalists that are there, they also write their own opinions. So that's called an opinion or a column in a newspaper. So at that time, you have to have your own views. You cannot persuade yourself by the views of others. So you should have a standpoint of your own. So if you say that A is good and B is bad, then you should be able to justify why A is good and B is bad. And to reach that stage, you have to start early. So that's how you should have an opinion. And I know lawyers are very good at opinions, because that's how you succeed as a lawyer. That if you have an opinion that this thing is bad, then that's bad. And if it's good, if it's good. So that's how it works.
Okay, so would you recommend any courses or books for young law students who are planning for a career in legal journalism?
I'll say one can start with, so there are a lot of courses on writing, or one can just start reading an article. There are no specific courses that come up to my mind, because uh, I am myself from a non-mass communications background, so I
Hmm.
particularly don't know about if there is any, or if there is even any need to do any mass communication course. Although it's recommended and it's good, because most of the best journalists from the journalism fraternity have a mass comm background. That said, there are a lot of courses on Coursera that give you a very basic understanding of how to write. And it's not just legal journalism, but how to write in general. So how journalism works, what's the history of journalism, how do you write things. And mostly what I'll say is it's self learning. So you have to basically do, you can do these learning courses that are available on Coursera, or even LinkedIn Learning has some good courses on writing. But mostly it's a skill that is inherent in you. You should start writing and take feedback. Nothing is better than that. So you can do n number of courses, but ultimately it comes up to you, because that's a personal skill. That is, writing is a personal skill. So and also what I'll say is the best way to start for a on a very limited scale is that if you are in a college, like discuss a topic on any particular day, and ask like if you are a group of 3 to 4 like-minded people, discuss a topic and say that let's write a one pager document on that. The second day, what you can do is do a peer review kind of a thing. Like you will review someone else's work, someone else will review your work, and then take the feedback. And if
Hmm.
all of the 4 friends are part of a same group and you have a good understanding between yourself, then you can understand where you are lagging. And the most important thing is one should learn to respect others views. If you are not good at that, and if you cannot take a critique, so there is difference between like vague criticism and critique. But taking feedback on your work is equally important.
Right, right. Okay, so moving on to the last question we have always in our podcast episode is that can you share any incident from your career which is very memorable to you?
Yeah, so I remember I started out as a, like as I told you at the start of the uh, interview, that I have a very like zigzag career.
Hmm.
And so I started out initially in a private limited bank. So it was a private bank. I was working in a rural branch, and it was my second day of work. It was
Hmm.
literally my second day of work, and this was back in 2012. So it was like 8 years back. So
Hmm.
2012, it's my second day, and our circle head, that's a person who heads the entire state. So
Okay.
our circle head visits our branch, and at that time, our branch was not doing that well when it comes to certain parameters. So at that time, it was a normal briefing that you have. Like if any of your senior visits uh, branch office, especially in banks, so they assess the branch on particular parameters. So each and every employee had to basically explain his what he has done over a particular span of time. So because it was my second day, so I had to basically say something. You cannot be silent, and I was under pressure because that was my first job in my life. And someone of his stature comes up. He was the circle head, like he was reporting directly to the CEO at that time. So he was that senior in the system. So when he came up, I just told him that, sir, I know this won't be a proper answer, but I'm just trying to learn because this is my second day at the job. And then I told him something. I don't remember exactly, but I told him something. So everything was done. They were happy chatting with everyone. And then the person went away. Then my branch manager or my boss called me in the office, and then he said, like, what did you do? So I was quite worried because that was my second day of job, and I was like a bit, did I say something wrong or rude? Because fresh out of college, you don't know how to speak sometimes.
Yeah.
So I was afraid whether I did something wrong. And to add to the funny aspect of that, he called two of my colleagues also. So it was a small branch, 4 to 5 people. So everyone was inside the cabin, and they were trying to say like, कि भाई तूने क्या कर दिया? So ultimately he said, you did a good job. This is how you should address your seniors. But for a brief moment, I was a bit afraid, and that stayed with me because that was my first job, and that was a brief stint. I left that job for some other reasons, but that was a memorable one because it was a rural banking role, and you really learn a lot when you go in a bank in a rural area, the kind of uh, adversities people face, and there were a lot of issues. And I was in a area which was like a arid, drought prone kind of an area. So that 6 to 7 months that I was there in that private bank, that was a memorable one for me, and this incident stays with me a lot. So
Yeah, nice one. Okay, Rohit, thanks a lot for this wonderful conversation and sharing your experience with us. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you like this episode, then you must also check out our other episodes available here, and also follow us here so that you don't miss any new episode.